Okay, it says the Mishnah Kedosha, Notnim mayim al gabi hashmarim b'shvil sheyitzalu. Water may be poured on top of the sediments so that they become, they flow, which means since the water will flow through the sediments that were placed on the filter before Shabbat, which is okay, and now the water itself is no issue of filtering. Therefore, you could pour the water over it, and eventually it will be able to suck out some of the remaining drops of wine that are left in the sediments, in the mamish, right? And then, when the water drains, everything will just be flowing. It will drain with that, so it'll become like it's like concentrate, like a grape juice from concentrate, or wine from concentrate. That's okay. That we could do because there's no borer on the water. And so when you pour them on top, they're sitting on top over there, and then the water just goes through. That's like that type of borer just happening by itself. Okay. Then there's another thing that you could do, an isur d'Rabbanan of filtering wine with a shinui. Okay, now what type of wine are we talking about over here? There's different stages of how dirty the wine is and how thick it is. There's an undrinkable level at the beginning. Then there's drinkable, but most people don't drink because it still has a lot of things. And then there's very clean, but people still like to filter really clean wine to make it like totally, right? Totally pure. So this Mishnah is talking about, let's say, the middle step here, that it's like, it is drinkable, but people usually filter it. So we know you're not allowed to filter the wine because of its sediments, we said in last Mishnah. But here it's letting you know that since it's only going to be an isur d'Rabbanan, because it's not such a strong borer in the first place, because it's all edible. If you do it with a shinui, by using handkerchiefs and sheets, or b'chifa mitzrit, or with a basket, an Egyptian basket, it's going to be okay. Second, I just want to see your Ratzon over here for a second.
Cornflakes.
I want to make one bracha. I just want to make one.
Oh, we didn't start yet. Thank God. Till I come.
So you guys.
Rabbi, you were doing his brother do it?
That was. I just went and came back already. I was going to the whole Ummah. Okay, fine. I'm sorry, everybody. Oh, you have this Egyptian wicker basket. So we're in the middle, actually. Yeah. Okay, so now you can use that because it's also a shinui. You had placed an egg in a filter for the mustard seed. What they used to like, first I thought it was that they like the white to come through, but I think I see that it's really the yellow. They like the yellow is less thick than the white. I thought the yellow was thicker. It's just a clump, whatever, one thing, but it's really, it's more liquidy. It's not as, right. So they wanted the yellow to go through to give like some sort of yellow shine coloring to the, when they do the chalot, the ladies, they do the yellow or do the white?
Yellow.
The yellow.
Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah.
It's both. It has a Here they used the yellow and they wanted the white out. So, okay, fine. So we'll see exactly why that's not an issue of borer. If they're being borer, they're sorting out the yellow from the white, and they want the yellow to go through and the white, the thicker part, to stay on top. We'll see, but the Mishnah says it's okay. Ve'osin anumlin b'Shabbat. What's anumlin? The Gemara is going to tell us. You're allowed to make this concoction of anumlin b'Shabbat, of Yehuda Omer b'Shabbat, because Yehuda says, okay, now the Tana Kama says, just make it. Now Rabbi Yehuda is the middle sheet. He says, Shabbat because. You make a small amount of Shabbat, because it's a tircha. B'Yom Tov, where Ochel Nefesh is more mutar, there they gave belogin, like in a pitcher. It's larger than a cup. Uvamoed and Chol HaMoed b'chavit. You're allowed to even do as much tircha. By the way, Chol HaMoed, a lot of Mishnayot do not allow a lot of tircha on Chol HaMoed. But here it's telling you that you're allowed to do more tircha than on Yom Tov. Therefore, you can make a barrel full of anumlin. So the Tana Kama said, just do whatever you want. Rabbi Yehuda said, they are shi'urim. And Rabbi Tzadok Omer, hakol lefi ha'ochin. It depends on how many guests. Now, some Mefarshim learned that means that sometimes that will be a leniency and sometimes that will be a stringency. It means Shabbat, Yom Tov, Chol HaMoed. It depends on how many guests. If you have very little guests, you could do even less. And if you have many, many guests, you could do even more. So sometimes there will be a stringency, sometimes there will be a leniency. Okay. Says the Gemara, Amar Ze'iri. Ze'iri said, Noten Adam Yayin Tzalul U'Mayin Tzlulin L'toch HaMishameret B'Shabbat Ve'eno Choshesh. A person may place clear wine and clear water into the strainer on Shabbat. He doesn't have to worry about Chilul Shabbat, because since they're both just fine without straining, the wine and the water, therefore you're not really making anything that much better on Shabbat. You're not being mitaken, and we don't see it as a problem. Aval, achurin, but if they're murky, lo. Because since most people don't drink them this way, so that's an isur of borer or miraked, sifting or sorting, when you misanen mishameret. Okay? Says the Gemara, Meiteve, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, Torei dadam chavit shel yain, yeina ushmareha. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, now the iri is an amora. So the Gemara is asking a kasha from a braita with a tana of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer. What does he say? He says, Tored means you can bother, which really means to mix adam chavit shel yain, yeina ushmareha. You can mix a barrel of wine in order to mix the wine and the sediments. V'noten l'toch ha'mishmeret b'Shabbat. After you mix it, now the sediments are running around the entire barrel. They're not settled on the bottom. And now you can strain it, ve'enu choshesh. So you see that even a wine that needs filtering can be placed into the strainer on Shabbat. Not like the iri that says asur. So the Gemara says, Targum as the iri ben agitot shanu. The iri explained that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel was talking about when you're drinking wine, ben agitot. Ben agitot means the place where they actually, in the wine press, where they squeeze the grapes. There, the derech was to drink the wine with their sediments. And if you would filter it over there, that's not considered a major fixing. Okay? Therefore, we don't consider it like a tikkun. But after a while, when it's not that fresh, people do not drink it when it's freshly squeezed. You know, you'll take the whole thing with all the parts and everything. You see the guy squeezing it? That's what it was. So by the wine press, they just drank the wine. With the things, it was so fresh. After a while, people will not drink it. I think that's the pshat there. They wouldn't drink it unless it was filtered. So now filtering is a necessary component. If it's a necessary component, it's a problem, because then you're fixing the wine. It's not drinkable. Or at least most people wouldn't drink it, so it's at least an issur d'Rabbanan. But bein agitot, it's not an issue at all. The Mishnah said that if you filter wine in a way that there's only an Isur Derabanan, and you also do it in a way of a shinui, in an abnormal fashion, then what? Then it's okay. Like you use sheets, use handkerchiefs. As long as you don't make like a guma, means you don't let it sink. You keep it flat. You keep the handkerchief flat over the keli, and you pour the wine over it, and it might sink by itself, but you can't make that little sinking thing. Now, why not? So Rashi learns it's a uvda d'choil. It looks too much like you're involved in being mistanen and filtering. So you put it on straight, that's fine. But if you start, like working it out and making it so it looks too much like it's being filtered. And I think the problem was that if you do that, then you'll come on to real filtering without the shinui. So they just said put it straight on top, and that's it. If it happens, automatically, and just eventually it starts to sag and it gets, it gets into the right position, that's not your business. And you can use another shinui was a wicker basket. A new issue, according to Rashi, the pshat is that you have to make sure that if you put let's say you're using like a large bowl, and then you're putting the wicker basket above the bowl, which is a shinui, which is an interesting way of filtering, so you could do it with an Issa D'Rabbanan. But you have to make sure you don't create an ohel. Why? Because you can't have a tefach of space with a covering. That is an oil. It's an oil aroy, it's only midrabanan, but you have to be careful not to do it. So make sure that the wicker basket, this Egyptian basket, is less than a tefach away from the bottom of the bottom keli. Omar Rav, hai paroinka, apalge de kubeshari. This cloth, this garment, whatever it is that you spread over the barrel of wine, you could only spread it over half of the barrel. It's not an ohel. Akule kuba, but on the whole mouth, asur, because it's considered an ohel. By the way, a lot of Rishonim don't learn the way Rashi learns here, that there's an ohel, because they learn that there's no ohalim in kelim. In vessels, you can't create an ohel. Rashi learns that there is a problem here. But, so how do they learn this Gemara? Nothing to do with ohel. They learn this Gemara because if you cover the whole thing, then it looks too much like you're filtering. So you have to make it look unfiltering, like it's not a filtering process. That's what he's saying, according to those Rishonim. Omar Rav Papa lo nehadik inish tziniyata bepume de kuzni de chavita mishum de merzi kimishameret. A person is not allowed to stuff tightly, pack in straw and little twigs, whatever it is, into the mouth of the kuzni de chavita. They used to have like a little, what do they call them? The tea, what do they call them?
Kettles.
Not the kettles, like, after you get to have the tea ready, what is it called again? My mind in the morning, it just doesn't, the tea, your mother serves the tea, like in England, they bring out the tea, they have like a, not the cup, the thing that
Kettle.
The kettle?
Yeah.
No, but it's not straight from the fire. It's like a little piece of china.
Yeah.
The tea, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has like a little spout. So they had such a thing next to the barrel of wine. And whenever they wanted to use it, they would like take it in there and then they would pour it from there. That's what this kuzna de chavita is. There should be some word, I can't remember it. So you're not allowed to pack the mouth of that jug, whatever that is, with straw. Mishum de merzi kimishameret. It looks like you are filtering. You're not filtering mamish, but it looks like it. Now, the reason why you're not mamish is because the sediments actually get through. But the pieces of straw or things like that, they won't get through. So it seems like over here, but it still looks very much like you're involved. And even though you have clear wine and there's nothing really that you're blocking because you don't have pieces in there, but since it looks like you're being involved in an act of mishameret, even if all the things are going to get through, you shouldn't do it just for that reason itself. Now, in Rav Papa's house, the Vei Rav Papa, shafu shichra mimana lemana. The people of Rav Papa would pour beer very slowly from one vessel to another, and because they did it so slowly, the bad parts would remain on the bottom. There are little drops. What are these little drops? There's little. At the end of the barrel. At the end of the barrel, when you're going really slowly, everybody sees that there's bad and there's good. And those last little drops, which you're being so careful to go so slow because they basically have all the sediments inside. You just drop them out. That's better. So the Gemara says, "Nitzotzes l'beirav papa lechashivi." Those in his household, those were not considered important. Why? Because Rav Papa used to. That's what he did. He was a beer brewer, and therefore they had a lot of beer in his house. So he didn't really care about the last drops. So when he got to the bottom, even though there was good stuff left, he just left it. He did it right. You let to place the egg in this strainer of mustard seeds. Now, why isn't that a problem of borer? Tani Yaakov Korcha. Yaakov Korcha explained. Lefi she'en osin ota el legaven. So Rashi learns that they're both considered. They only want to do it for coloring, and therefore you don't consider any part the bad part. Why? Because if you would want to eat one and not eat the other, so one is considered the bad, one is considered the good. But now that you would want to eat both, so the fact that one is more colorful than the other, that doesn't make this act into an act of borer. Because it's ocha mitoch ocha, they're both ochlim. Okay? Itmar, chardal shaloshe me'erev Shabbat. If a chardal got, literally needed on Erev Shabbat, so the machar omarav machoy, the kli avaloi biyad.
I have a question, sorry. So,
yeah.
If you want to, you're pouring orange juice.
Yes.
And you have the pulp. That's okay? And
you don't want the pulp, or you do want the pulp?
You don't want the pulp.
How are you gonna strain it?
Use a strainer, or use something else.
You can't do that.
So then why with the egg you can't? It's like the egg yolk. It's like the pulp, for example.
So the Gemara is saying here that you really want to eat both. You want to eat both now. Just you don't want to for the coloring of the mustard seeds. You only want one.
No, you don't want to eat both. You want to eat just the white egg white, not the yolk. You want to strain out the yolk.
The truth is, you really want to eat. You want to eat both. You don't want to discard the white either.
Why?
Because why not? It's a good piece of food.
But you prefer not to have it.
In the coloring of the mustard seeds, you don't want the color. You don't need the color that much.
No, I'm not saying much. I'm just saying in general. You want egg whites with yolk. You want to take out the yolk from the egg white.
Oh, if you really don't want to eat one of them,
yeah,
that would be a problem.
Why? It's all one part of the one thing, though. Wasn't that the reason why we said it was okay? Because it's all part of one. It's part of one thing. You're just taking out. It's not like two separate things. It's one thing. It's not like two different foods. It's one food. You're just separating something from the one food of itself.
I don't think he's saying that it's one. What would you say?
This egg is raw?
Yeah.
They would use it raw? Like
What do you mean? They would use it raw.
on Shabbat to eat? Like
You could drink it.
They would eat it on the. You mean because it was raw on the mustard seed?
yeah, I mean, what was the purpose of his food? Like, what kind of, I've never heard of
Yeah, they would eat it raw, I guess.
raw.
I don't think they would eat the whole thing. A little bit of the color went on, then it got mixed in with a lot of things. They probably mixed it with a lot of the other things. I don't know what they did.
But again, you're separating it because of the color. Like, that's separating.
But you still want to eat both of them.
Are you going to eat the other part that you separated? Because if you don't want to eat the other part that you separated, then you're picking and choosing. I
That's
mean,
for
are you
sure.
separating? If you're telling me I'm going to eat both, no, I want to have both. I just have to do with the color, but I'll eat the other part. That's the Shabbat. It's fine, I think. But if you're going the other direction,
It's a good kasha you're asking. It bothers me also a little bit. But Rashi learns that since they both, their main purpose, I guess he means because their main purpose is to be eaten. And you want to eat both of them. So why'd you separate them? Because one is more colorful than the other. But I don't want to discard the other one. I like both of them. Maybe I like the other part even better. For this color issue, I want this here. So that's not a problem of Bayer. Because you look at them as both oichel and apsoilus. You look at them, let's say you're going to eat both things on Shabbat meal, right? But you like to eat this part with the rice. I like one part with the, and then I want this part by itself.
what if you don't eat the other part by itself? You're not going to.
No, you do, but you will. Oh, because you're saying that over here, since it's raw, you're not going to end up eating it on Shabbat. but the only reason why you're not going to eat it is nothing to do with, not because you don't want to. It's not because it's psoilus. Oh, you're saying because it's raw, so you're not going to end up eating the white on Shabbat, so therefore it's psoilus until you cook it, then it becomes oichel. You want to know basically why it's called oichel if it's not cooked. That's really what you're asking.
Yeah.
I
could also follow up a question.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, here. What?
Let's talk about but not really hard-boiled egg on Shabbat. Right? I only want to have the egg white. How do you eat it?
Well, egg, that. Why not? Just eat the egg white. Take the egg white.
So if let's say I peel it, cut it, take out the egg white, isn't that separated from the yellow?
First of all, you're taking out what you want.
But what else am I going to take out the bad?
You're taking the good from the bad. There's a lot of easy ways to do it. And even if you want just you want the yellow. It's the same thing. I'm saying you cut it, you could take out the yellow. That's for sure not a problem. Yeah. If you ever get stuck with such a thing with Bayer, you could also like take a little. You don't have to in this case, but I'm saying if you do, you take a little bit of the bad with it. Okay. You just want to move because it's getting a drop late. Yep. I think that's what you do. But I hear your question over here. I'm not 100% clear myself. Okay, Itmar. Let me look into it a little bit. Chadol shalosh me'erev Shabbos l'mocher amarav memachai b'kli avalei b'yad. There's an issur of kneading things together, because if you mix things with water, many times they become like one. Many particles become one. Like for example, flour. You pour water inside, it becomes one. That's kneading. So you're not allowed to mix the mustard here together with water, with a keli. You could mix it with water or wine b'kli, inside a kli. Avalei b'yad. Okay, so you have to do some sort of shinui, because they're used to the normal way of mixing the mustard was with the hands. But if you do it with a keli, that's an interesting way, and therefore it's going to be mutter. Amalei shmuel b'yad. With your hand, it's asur. Atu kol yomim machle b'yad. You do that every day with your hand. Machol chamirimu. If a person mixes the mustard seed with his hands, then you're turning the mustard seed into donkey fodder. Basically, that's how you feed donkeys. You mix things with your hands and you feed it to them. The normal way Shmuel says to Rav to mix something is with a keli. So why are you telling me that when you do it with your hand, that's the normal way, and do the keli is not the normal way? Shmuel says exactly the opposite. And he says you do it with the yad, even though it's going to be done it's going to be better. Shmuel's saying people just don't do that. It's just whatever, you don't do it with your hand. But it will be a better job. But Shmuel's chidush is, even though it's going to be a better job, so therefore, if you do, but since it's not normally done like that, therefore it's a shinui and it's going to be mutter. Okay. Weiter. Itmar. Now, we're going to have a machlokes much later on in the masechet, a few weeks, near the mamash near the end of the masechet, of all about that melacha. We didn't speak a lot about that melacha in the whole Shabbat. It's been very silent about it. It's late because it's late. About just pouring water in, or gibel, if you have to mix, or just the water itself pouring into flour is already the problem because the particles already come together. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Says the Gemara, Itmar, Rabbi Lozer Omer, Echod Zeh ve'Echod Zeh. Asur, you're not allowed to do it with your hand or with the keli. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Echod Zeh ve'Echod Zeh, mutar. So now we have an extreme shita, not like Rav and not like Shmuel, that both of them are mutar. Nobody said that. It was just a question, which one? And then we have another shita, the first one, Rabbi Lazar, both of them are asur. So, Abai v'Rava Tam Taver in halacha Rabbi Yochanan. The halacha does not follow Rabbi Yochanan. Now, the Sfat Emet says he didn't say the halacha follows Rabbi Lazar. So, what they're really saying is you can't be so makil. You have to be a little more machmir, like Rav. But he didn't say like Rabbi Lazar, you can be totally matir, because then they would have just said the halacha follows Rabbi Elazar. They said the halacha is not like Rabbi Yochanan, that is so makil, you have to be a little machmir. But not so machmir, you go like Rav that says that with your hand it's going to be asur, and with the keli it's going to be mutar. Afterwards, after Rabbi Yochanan said that you're allowed to do with in any which way you want, he was chozer, and now he felt like the opinion. He also had the opinion of Rabbi Lazar that both of them are asur. He went from one extreme to the other. Rabbi Yochanan. Abaya v'Rava de'amrit avayu halachic Rabbi Yochanan. Now that Rabbi Yochanan was chayzer, they paskin like him. Okay, now how's this possible that this happened just like in the timeline? Now what happened over here? Suddenly he goes, it's 100% asur. Now before I just told you that Abai and Rav are going to go like Rav, that it's only going to be asur if you do it with a keli or with your yad, but if you do it with a keli, it's mutar. Now that Rabbi Yochanan, hundreds of years before, it suddenly changed his mind. Now they change their mind. How could that be? The Teretz says they only heard that he changed his mind. But once they heard that Rabbi Yochanan changed his mind, they said, "Oh, that's really what happened to Rabbi Yochanan." So now they went like Rabbi Yochanan, and they went to the extreme of asur over Rav, because the halacha is that we always go like Rabbi Yochanan over Rav. So even right, therefore,
Why did they not know that? And you just find out, oops, I forgot that he said that. He didn't really say.
Because there were two things that he said, and they only had heard the first shir that he gave. Whoever they heard it from, their Rabbeim, said over the first Rabbi Yochanan. But then later on, a few years later, they said, "Do you know that Rabbi Yochanan later on in his life changed?" Chazal. You have things like that all the time, even in the Meshubah, the Chavetz Chaim. There's stories that he wrote this in the second part of the Meshubah, the Astiris, and there's a story behind it to explain, because this would happen later on. Okay, so they only found out about that, the second part, later. Therefore, they changed their psak. Imi de Abaya, the mother of Abaya, which was her stepmother, of the lay, she made him this mustard that was mixed with liquid on Shabbat, v'lo achal. He didn't eat. Because even though she did it b'shogeg, he didn't want to eat from it since it was done in a prohibited way. My mistake. The bitud is the era of delay. The Rav Chia bar Ashi v'lo achal. Zeira's Talmud was Rav Chia bar Ashi, and Zeira's wife prepared the same dish for Rav Chia bar Ashi. He didn't eat it. I don't know, people don't eat this today, right? I wonder what it is exactly. She said, to your master, your Rebbe, my husband, I made it, he ate it. But you're too frum. You know, the Bachrim are always frummer. Right? And the Rebbe. Rava bar Shabbat said, in the Kamei Ravina, I was once standing before Ravina, v'achshidei b'shufta de tuma. And I mixed for him mustard with some sort of garlic root. Ve'achal, and he ate from it. The halacha does not follow any of these shmaitata. The Omar Kiho de Itmar. Only the way that was stated, Chadash Lashom Erev Shabbat Lemachar Memacho. If the chardal was already needed on Erev Shabbat in the water to the next day, you let him mix it with the water bein biyad b'mekli. V'noten letocho dvash, and you can even add honey. You see, they had a lot of ingredients over here. V'lo yitrof, but you can't beat it really strongly, the way that they beat the egg in a dish. Ela me'arev, rather you just mix it very nicely. So, and the reason why is because this shita holds that the only time we consider it a real gibel, a real kneading by mustard seeds is when you beat it together. But if you mix it little by little, that's not the normal way of doing it. And therefore, it's not a real kneading. It says Gemara, shachlayim. Shachlayim we had many times. It's some sort of bean or something. I don't know what they call it there exactly. What? Crest, yeah. Crest? That's what they call in Hebrew also krishim. Crests, krishim. Now, anybody know what that is?
Watercress.
You know,
Vegetable.
it's a vegetable. Sheshachkan me'erev Shabbat, that you grind it on Erev Shabbat in water, with water. Lemachar noten letochan shem v'chom mamshich. So on Shabbat, you can add oil, vinegar, umamshich letochan amita, and then you could continue placing amita. We'll see what that is. V'lo yitrof ela me'arev, but you can't beat it. Just mix it slowly. Shum garlic sherisko erev Shabbat that you crushed on Erev Shabbat. Lemachar noten letochol pol grease, and the next day, into that crushed garlic, you could put pol and grease in different types of these beans. V'lo yishchok, but don't grind them ela me'arev. Just mix them slowly. So the Gemara asks, what does it mean? Umamshichet amita l'tocha. My amita, ninya ment. Minta. I think they call it amita over there in Hebrew, no? They call it that in Israel now?
Amita.
No. Okay. Ninya is mint. Omer Abai Shmami no. From here we see, since it said that you pour this mint into this mixture of cress, hayninya ma'ali l'tachli. That it's good to put mint into shachlaim. I have no idea why Abai is saying this. What halacha? He's telling you a good recipe? Of course not. What's Abai teaching us? I'm not exactly sure what he's trying to say. Maybe he's saying it's healthy. I don't know.
It says here that
Gives it a bit of flavor.
yeah, because it improves the food.
It doesn't acquire taste, so it gives it a...
So what's Abai telling you? Is he writing a cookbook?
Telling you that you should
What?
you should make good food on Shabbos and you should enjoy it.
Aha, very good. Abai is very good. Okay. See, this is good for it. It's about Shabbat. He's aha, very good. Ken Zayd could be the Osrin an Mulya b'Shabbat. Remember we had a machloket, 3-way machloket in the Mishnah. So Tanu Rabbanan Osrin an Numlin b'Shabbat and Osrin aduntit. You could do a Numlin, but you can't make an aduntit. Ve'ezu anumlin, ve'ezu aduntit. Anumlin, yain udvash pilpilin. Wine, honey, and pepper. That's what it is. That's what we're talking about in the Mishnah. Aluntit is a mixture of yain yashan, old wine, umayim tzlulin, and clear waters, va'afar simon, and balsam oil, the avdi lebe masuta, which they would make for the bathhouse, lemekar, in order to cool a person off after he got all heated up in the hot bathhouse. And it wasn't made to quench your thirst. So therefore, you're not allowed to make it on Shabbat because it's basically like a medicinal purposes. So it's Isur de Rabbanan. Amar Rav Yosef said, Zim nechoda olis basar mar ukva lebe bani. I once walked in to the bathhouse behind Mar Ukva. Kinafki atai. Ashkeyan cham rachat kasa. He gave me to drink 1 cup of aluntit. V'chashimi binte deresh v'atufa dekari. And I was able to feel its cooling effect from the hairs of my head until my toenails. V'i ashkeyan kasa achrina. Had he given me another one, I would be very worried that I would be losing from the zchuyot of Olam Haba. Because, meaning to say, I would have died from being so cold. And if I would have died, the only way I would have made it would be with a miracle. So how would I make a miracle? How would the miracle work? They would have to minus off, knock off a lot of my zchuyot from Olam Haba. It has a tremendous cooling effect.
It's not about dying. It's about the fact that it's so good of a feeling that you're losing memory in the Olam Haba. That's the idea.
That's another pshat. That's how some learn. The Marshal learns like that. But
I'm sorry, you're right,
Rashi learns shaloi amos. Rashi says, "Meyisi nitzu mimenu shaloi amos." Had I been saved from death, that would have taken a lot of zchuyot off my chart, off my record. So, by the way, you could try making this. You could sell it. This would be the new Gatorade. You can make a lot of money. You want to cool off after. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? But Mar Ukva would drink it the whole day and it wouldn't harm him. So why was he so worried about it? Shani Mar Ukva the Dashbe. Mar Ukva was used to it. So it wasn't an issue for him. But Yosef wasn't so used. Okay.
What is it made out of again?
What?
Made with clear water and balsam. Old wine.
What's the ingredients?
It's old wine.
Old wine, clear water.
Balsam. Interesting. Serve that in the restaurant that I'm opening up one day.
Yeah.
The food from the Gemara. I love that restaurant. It's gonna come on soon. You're not allowed to soak chiltit, some sort of sharp herb, in warm water on Shabbat. Why not? We'll see in the Gemara. But you're allowed to place it. Now people would drink this for medicine. So even though you're not allowed to do these things for medicine, okay, but noten letocha chometz. You could put it into the vinegar and then dip your bread into it and get all your medicinal things out of it while you're eating. So it looks like you're eating and you're not doing it for medicine, it's fine. Okay. Because it was edible sometimes. Okay? You're not allowed to pour water over the kashinin. Kashinin again are certain types of beans and some sort of legume that they used for animals. Now, if you drown it in water, basically what happens is what sinks to the top? What floats to the top? The bad stuff. So you can't do that. You're not allowed to rub them with your hand in order to remove the bad parts. Because of borer, both these things. But you're allowed to place the kashinin inside like a sieve or a basket. Okay, even though, now that's where you're storing them. Even though sometimes the bad parts will fall out of the holes, and the mela, automatically there will be some sort of borer going on. Okay? So, now you're not allowed to do it purposefully so that should happen. If you're storing them there, that's not a problem because you're not mechaven. And it's not a psik reisha pashtus. Ein kovrin et ateven, the straw, v'lo yitnenu al gabe makom gavoa b'shul sheyered amotz. You're not allowed to place it on a very high place. So, you're not allowed to place it inside a kovrin, inside the sieve, in a kvara. V'lo yitnenu al gabe makom gavoa b'shul sheyered amotz. And also, if you place it on a very high spot, that eventually all the bad parts inside will fall out. Aval notelhu b'kvara, v'notel letoch ha'evut. But you can carry it in the sifter and put it inside the trough. And even though automatically what's going to happen eventually is that the bad parts will fall out of the holes, we're not worried about, because that's not what you're trying to do. Since you're not mechavem, we're going like Rabbi Shimon, that's going to be mutar. Ibayilhu. Vishoro. We said that you're not, what did the Mishnah start off with? The shriyat of the cheltit. You're not allowed to take this sharp herb called cheltit, place it in warm water. Why can't you? Ibayilhu. Vishoro mai. Let's say you did it. What's the halacha? Is that isu deraita or derabanan? This is a melacha d'oraita. Why? Because that's the way it became ready. So Rav Ada holds that that's as if you cooked it. It's like it was raw before and now it's cooked. Just, we have the certain fish that all you got to do is just rinse them in some hot water and they're ready. So here too, by soaking this, now it becomes ready in warm water, and that's all it needed. Now, so basically, you're cooking. Cooking is the process. You don't need to have fire with boiling hot water. The cooking process means that you're altering the quality of the food by some sort of means. So that's like pickling, for example. It's cold water, right? If you soak raw meat in water, you're going to tell me you're chayav? So, that's not a malacha. Now, obviously over there, you're not really making it ready when you soak it in the water. But Abaye is just saying, it doesn't make sense. That's why he's comparing it. The whole Isur in the Mishnah is only midrabanan. And because it's uvda d'chol. It's an uvda d'chol. Okay? Okay. Are you, if you don't use warm water, let's use cold water. Could you do it? It says specifically in warm water. Habitzonen mutar. Sounds like if it's cold, it's okay. So Rabbi Yanai told Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yanai was Rabbi Yochanan's Rebbe, if I don't know how to explain the Mishnah, right? You're asking me if cold is good. I know the Mishnah says warm. And I told you cold is also a problem. So you tell me, but the Mishnah says warm. So he says, so you basically tell me I don't know how to read the Mishnah. I don't know how to interpret the Mishnah. If I don't know how to interpret the Mishnah, then what's the difference between me and you? Why am I your Rebbe? You're just as great as me. But the Mishnah is a das yochid. We don't pass like the Mishnah. Of course, you think I didn't see the Mishnah? It says only warm. The Mishnah is not the halacha. The Tanya, because it's a bright, ain't sure. The bright brings down the Tanakama. You can't even do it in cold. So therefore, our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yossi. But the Chachamim that argue with Rabbi Yossi in that Braita hold that even bitzonen it's going to be a problem. It's going to be like an uvda d'choil. And therefore, that's what we paskin like that Braita. So the Gemara says,
Why do they do this? What are they putting this sharp herb into the water for? So the Gemara says, L'yukra deliba. The person is heavy-hearted. So this helps him feel light. It's good for the heart. Rabbi Acha Yosef had a heartache. Okay? Now, this doesn't mean a heart attack. If they were worried about his life, then obviously you're allowed to do whatever you want on Shabbat. He had some sort of, I don't know what it is exactly, Yukra Deliba, heavy-hearted, heart pain, heartburn, whatever the Gemara means exactly. Also, the Kamei de Mar Ukva. Omar Lei, so Mar Ukva told him, Zil Shtei Tlata Tikli, Chiltata Betlata Yom. Remember, Mar Ukva was the one that made that cooling, the cooling in the mikveh, in the bathhouse. So Mar Ukva told Rav Acha bar Yosef, go drink this chiltit that's soaked in water. How much of it? The amount that weighs 3 golden coins, dinarim, over a span of 3 days. Azal Rav Acha went, Ishti chamsha b'shaba u'mal shaba. He drank it on Thursday and on Friday. Litzafram on Shabbat, Azal Shalbe Midrasha. He asked in the Beit Midrash, what can I do? Rabotai, can I drink my 3rd day of my medicine is on Shabbat, of this concoction. Amrulei, they told him, Tono, Teve Ravado, that in Ravado's Beit Midrash, some said that it was in Mar, the son of Ravado's Beit Midrash, Shotea Adam Kavu Kabayim, Ve'eno Choshesh. That you're allowed to drink even a whole kav, which is 24 eggs, or kabayim, 48 eggs worth. It's an exaggeration, obviously. But he means you could drink as much as you want, because some healthy people drink it. So it doesn't look like you're drinking any medicine. Now, by the way, if you notice that this is Rav Ada's Beit Medrash, and Rav Ada was the one that said that if you make it on Shabbat, you're chayav chatat. Okay? Because he considered it cooking. But now we're not talking about making, we're talking about drinking it. So Rav Ada says, in the drinking, Rav Ada is very makel. He says, it's not refuah, it's not an issue. Amalahu. So Rav Acha bar Yosef explained his question. And he said, Lishtot lo kamiboili. I don't have any doubt, that's not what I came to ask you. Of course you can drink it. Because there are many people that drink it as a drink. And therefore, and we already learned the Mishnah that says any drink that people normally drink, you could drink. My question is, can I actually soak it? The Mishnah says you're not allowed to soak it. So Rav Chia bar Oven told Rabbi Bar Yosef and to the people there, I asked Rav Bar Hava, and he didn't know. Then I went to Rav Huna Omar Hochi Ka'amar Rav. What you could do is you could soak it in cold waters. Okay? Like we said in the Mishnah, in the Braita, that was according to Rabbi Yossi, which seems like it's our Mishnah. And if you want to warm it up, you put it into the sun. So the Gemara says, Kemad the Shari? Is this going like Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah? So the Gemara says, no. I feel Lamanda Osar, even according to the Manda Omer, like Rabbi Yanai that said that, or the Tanakama in the Braita, that says it's Osar to do it in cold. Hani midi hechadulay ishti klal. That's only if you weren't drinking you didn't have this before Shabbat. But here that he drank it on Thursday and Friday, if you don't drink it on Shabbat, then it could be a danger for you. And therefore, everybody holds that you're allowed to soak it, because it's pikuach nefashot. Pretty amazing, no? His heartache wasn't pikuach nefashot. But if you drink the medicine for the heartache for 2 days and you don't finish it, then it could be a tremendous sakana. Once, Rav Acha bar Yosef, which was
the uncle of Nachman bar Yitzchak, he once went to Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak, and Rabbi Achai bar Yosef was already an old man. They were helping him walk, and he was leaning on Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak's shoulder. It was his sister's son. Omalei. So Rav Acha told his nephew Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Kimatinon, the Beit Rav Safra, when we get to Rav Safra's home, Eilina, bring me up to his home. Kimatu Eile. When they got there, he brought him up. Bo Mine. Rav Acha bar Yosef asked Rav Safra, Mao lisach suche, lisach kuse, kitonisa b'shapsa. Are you allowed to rub a flax shirt, something made out of flax, right? That's washed between your hands on Shabbat. Why would they do that? They want to soften it, okay? Because if you just wash it and dry it in the sun, it gets like all cracky and hardened. So the way to soften the shirt was to rub it. So when you rub it, it also makes it really white and shiny, bright. So he had a shayla if you're allowed to do this on Shabbat. What was his question about? Is he doing it just to soften the cloth? Or maybe the person really has intentions also to make it brighter and whiter. And therefore it's going to be asur because of libun, of whitening. It's not a problem because the person just wants to soften it. And therefore, the other part is Eino Mitchaven. Kinafak, when Rav Acha bar Yosef left Rav Safra's home, Omar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, his nephew, told him, "My bo mar minei." What have you asked Rav Safra? Omar le bo minei ma'u lisach kuse kitonisa b'shapsa v'omar li shapidami. I asked him, and he told me it's okay. V'tiboyle lemar sudara. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak asked his uncle, "V'tiboyle lemar sudara." Why don't you ask him about a regular handkerchief? Same thing. Why did you ask him about this flax shirt? Because I already asked that question to Rav Huna, and he already told me the teretz. Now, it doesn't really say what he told him. So they bring down the Rashi later is mashma that it's asur. Okay? Some even have that girsa that it's asur. You can't rub the regular handkerchief after it was washed and dried, and it's very dry. Now, so the Gemara says, "V'tiv shudei l'mar misidura." So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak asked his uncle, so then why did you have a shaila about your this undershirt that was made out of flax if you already knew that the other one, you already knew the halacha for the other one, and according to Rashi, it means he already knew that it was asur. There, the act looks like I'm trying to bring out the whiteness of the handkerchief. Okay, but here it doesn't look like it's you're doing it for that, because a person is much more particular about the whiteness of his handkerchief than the whiteness of this undershirt. Why? Because the sudar they would have on top of their shirt, and this was the undershirt. So therefore, they didn't really care that much about the whiteness. So therefore, it doesn't look like you're trying to whiten, but rather trying to soften. However, on the one that you wore above, it looks like you're trying to whiten it, and therefore it's an issue. Amar Rav Chizda, Haiki Tanita, this undershirt made out of flax that got washed. Mishtafu l'dido mikan yeshari. You're allowed to slip it off the pole that it was hanging on to dry. Kanya mimena, but to slip out the pole, asur. Why? Because the pole is muktzah. What's this pole made out of? It's just a piece of wood that they're going to burn. So therefore, they didn't have specific like poles to hang their undershirts. They just grabbed anything from the firewood, they stuck it in the ground, whatever, and they threw something on it. So therefore, it's muktzah. Omar Rava im kli kivai hu mutar. But if it's the weaver's stick, it's okay. Because it's a keli and it's not mukta. Omer avchista, haikishta de yarka, this bundle of vegetables. Even if it's just befitting for animals to eat, you can move it. V'ilo astir. Otherwise, it's going to be asur. Because it's mukta. Omer av Chiya bar Ashi, Omer av Haitali de Bisra Shleilu Tutuli. The Chavri Asir, if you have a string full of beef, like a salted meat, like salami, you're allowed to move it because you can eat it. But if you have a strong fish, you're not allowed to move it because you can't eat it without cooking it. What happened to sushi? I don't know. Because the Gemara in those days, it was a little bit almost opposite. They didn't eat the raw fish. What does that mean? It means, well, what is it doing over here also? What is this member doing here? So the Achrenim asked this question. Sometimes, since he said a thing about Derech Eretz before, about when Rav Chizda is saying different things. It's a Derech Eretz thing, which we're going to see a lot of them over here. So, ha'imid be'emtza hamita, if someone stays in the middle of the bed of a married people, ki'ilu omed be'kreisa shel isha. It's like he's standing in the kreisa of the isha, because it's going to bring him to hirhure avera. The lav miltahi. The Gemara says,
I don't understand what that means, staying in the middle of a married couple's bed. What does that even mean?
If you sit in the middle of a couple's bed, it can bring you to, it's as if he's standing mamish b'kreisa shel isha, on the stomach shel isha. Why? Because it's going to bring you to hirure avera. And therefore it's asur to do such a thing. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to go onto a couple's bed. The lav milti, the Gemara says, not true. You could. There's no isur. They bring down here that that sounds like from the Zohar also, like the maskon of this Gemara, that you're allowed to. But they bring down from the Reshit Chachma that if you know the people, you know the couple, then you should be careful not even to look at the bed. Psh. This Gemara seems to say that it's okay to even sit on it. I'm just letting you know. I'm telling you Reshit Chachma. So maybe it's a higher Chumrah. He says if you know them, you shouldn't. The Omer of Chizda bar Beirav, the Zovin Yarka, Lisbon Aricha. A Talmid Chacham that buys a vegetable, he should buy a really long one, a really long bundle. Kisha ki kisha, v'urka mimela. Because what's so good about the long one? It's more, because basically they all sell for the same price. So you should find the longest one. Now, what's this eight over here? This seems to be a very simple thing. What's he telling him? So they bring down from the Chassam Sofer that there's things underneath here. So Chassam Sofer says like this: Agudas Yerek, a bundle of vegetables, is really referring to what the Torah calls Agudas Ezev. The Torah and the Psukim, Agudat Ezov, the bundle of hyssop that they used. Hyssop is the lowest bush. So it means, how do you become an Anov? That Talmid Chacham should be mashpil himself, should lower himself. Okay? basically saying as follows: that he says that every time a person becomes lower, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifts him up higher. Right? He becomes greater, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes him even greater. So therefore, the tzaddikim, what they do is, the more bounty they get from Hashem, they make themselves lower and lower. So it just keeps getting better for them. But if HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says Chasam Sofer, suddenly sends a tzaddik greatness, he's a very big tzaddik, and suddenly everybody recognizes his tzidkut, so they say, okay, you're going to be the leader, the head of this. They suddenly lift him up. He was trying to hide in the corner, and they give him gedulah. He should receive it. He should take it. It's not gaiva. Because through this, he could show HaKadosh Baruch Hu how humble he is. Why? Because he's going to take the position and then make himself even more humble. So that's what the Chasam Sofer says. Now, where do you see this in this memra? Because Rav Chizda says like this: when a Talmid Chacham wants to acquire midah of anava, he should take aricha, take a long one, which means you could even take gedula. If you're trying to get agudat zov is you are trying to be humble, you could take big, great jobs also. But then afterwards, kisha kikisha, which means make sure that all bundles are the same. Even though you have a longer one, make sure you make yourself humble like before. That's it. That's how Chasam Sofer learns. There's Dovin Kanyo, Liz Ben Aricha. If you buy a bundle of sticks of eitzim, Liz Ben Aricha, you should buy the long one. Tuna ki tuna, because they're all the same thick. Ve'urcha memela. And this one is just automatically longer, so you're gonna gain. So how do they learn? Pshat over here. The Chasam Sofer says this is talking about the midah of patience, which actually comes from the midah of anova as well. But a person should always be rach kikaneh, right? Chazal say, va'al yehei kasheh ke'erez. So if you're buying chavilat kanim, if you're trying to become patient, then you could take a leadership position, and you'll show your patience in that position. You have people that are beneath you, where a lot of times people show they're not patient, and you'll show patience. Okay? But make sure that kituna kituna. Make sure you always stay underneath the people that are underneath you. You stay like tuna, you bear them, you carry them, you're like their slave. By the way, I just want to tell you, the Rabbi Akiva Eger's, his matzeva, this is the best. I go crazy with this one. Rabbi Akiva Eger's matzeva, you know what he said to write? He wrote in his tzava. That's what it says there. Poi nikva Rabbi Akiva Eger, Eved la'avdei Hashem. The slave of the slaves of Hashem. The servant of the servants of Hashem. He was the Rav, he was the Gadol Hador. We didn't have anybody as big as him since him. Rabbi Akiva Eger died in 1839. Yud Gimel Tishrei. And he writes, Eved, he was a servant. I'm not a servant of Hashem. I didn't get to that, but I had something to do with Hashem. You want to write something of it? I served people who served Hashem. The people were serving Hashem. I served them. Tuna ki tuna. I love that. For Omer of Chizda, he was known, his humility was, I think all the Gedolim were humble, but Akiva Eger was, they say about him, and they talk Rashi, they talk a lot about his humility and Akiva Eger. Omer of Chizda Bar Rav, to the nefisha le'rifta, le'lechel Yaakov, shum the gar. If a Talmid Chacham doesn't have a lot of bread, he shouldn't eat raw vegetables, because it makes him very hungry and he won't have anything. Omer of Chizda, ano loy ba'aniyusi ochli yarka, v'loy ba'asirusi ochli yarka. In my poverty, I don't eat vegetables. When I'm rich, I don't eat vegetables. Ba'aniyusi, I didn't eat when I was poor, mishum the garer, because it made me too hungry. Ba'asirusi, I also don't eat. Da'amino ki hechad oil yarka leil bissa v'chavri. in the place where the vegetable, instead of vegetables going into that spot, let me put in meat and fish. Meaning, since I'm able to eat healthier things, so why should I eat something that's not as healthy? So Rav Chizda is basically telling you like this: be frugal when you're poor, and be smart. And when you're rich, be healthy, since you have the money to be healthy. The Vilna Gaon says that what he's telling you is like this. You hear this pshat? He's saying that when he was young, Rav Chizda didn't want to learn philosophy. Even if you learn philosophy in the right way, you're able to get to Emunat Hashem. But he was worried that he's going to just be drawn after it and not learn Torah. And he also might make a big mistake. So he's saying, when I was young, I didn't want to eat vegetables, means philosophy. And when I got older and I became wealthy in Torah, I still didn't want to get involved in it. Because since it's just a way to bring you to Emunah, it's not the main course. I'd rather just bring in the main course, which is Torah itself, the fish and the meat. And that will bring me to where I have to go.
Well,
You like that, Pshat?
Yeah.
No philosophy when I'm little, no philosophy when I'm big.
but I just, one thing I said, philosophy, on the contrary, is not something that will bring you to Emunah. Philosophy will
Yeah, today's philosophy, by the way, it's very important to mention that. Yeah, it's not going to bring you to Emunah at all. Yeah, but he meant the philosophy. He didn't mean philosophy of the Greeks. He didn't mean that. Yeah, more like that. To philosophize in the right way. But I guess that of Chizda's level of Torah, he was able to get to Emunah just from the word of the Torah. That's really what brings you to Emunah. Okay. This is beautiful Gemaras. These are all like there's some seifers in the V'amar Rav Chizda bar Rav l'nefish le'rifta le'lifta b'tzui. A Talmid Chacham that doesn't have a lot of bread should not eat a little bit now and save the rest for later. Let's say he has right, like he'll eat a drop now. I have a little bit. I only have a little bit, so I'll eat that little bit that I have now, and then later in 3 hours I'll get another tiny little piece of bread. I'll eat it later. No, don't do that. Wait a little bit. Have patience. Wait till you get enough bread that will actually fill you up, and then you should eat it. The Chassam Sofer learns from here. Open a reproof for the later generations. That what? That they don't like to sit on one sugya for a long time. They like, oh, give me a nice pshat in this little gemara. Okay, let's continue. Let's do a little pshat in that gemara, a little pshat over here, a little pshat over there. And you don't get full on anything. So he says, they don't have, so tell him one sugya, do you know? Well, no. So you didn't get full on anything. And they don't learn complete mesechtot. He gives musar. They learn a little bit from this mesechta, a little bit from that mesechta. Says Rav Chizda, a Talmid Chacham that doesn't have a lot of bread. Bread is Torah. So you shouldn't learn a little bit. Let him learn one mesechta well until he's totally full from it, and then he should go to the next mesechta. Now, if he's able to, he says, to learn a lot with a lot of iyun and a lot, so of course, do everything. But if you can't, so learn one mesechta well. Okay? Now, I would like to say that in the middle of Daf Yomi over here. So, I don't know. Art school still put it in. They're into Daf Yomi. Okay, fine. No, it's very important. Everybody said the Daf Yomi is a charisha. The Daf Yomi is a plowing. You're not learning it, but like this is my that's my Gemara. That's it. That's all I want to get to. Of course, you want to sit and learn sugyot properly, and everybody should have such a seder. It's not even a question. But a person also wants. There's another Gemara that we had in Shabbat from Rav Kahana, that in order to be able to learn be'iyun, you have to first learn a lot of bekius. You have to know how Gemaras work. You have to hear of concepts. You have to hear of machloikis, and you have to go through Shas, and then. So a person should be doing both at the same time. It's not a steer. If you don't have a lot of bread, my time, don't cut it and give it out to other people. The loy ovid ba'ayin yofa, because you're not going to give out nice portions since you don't have a lot. The reason why the balabayit always is supposed to break the bread, the Gemara says in Brachot, because the balabayit usually gives out nice pieces. But he's saying, but if the Talmid Chacham is the greatest person, they don't give him the bread if he's very poor, because he's very poor, he won't give out big pieces. When I was poor, I didn't break the bread. Until I put my hand into the tire basket, meaning I felt everything. And then I found the bread that would make me happy. Then, meaning I got a lot of bread out of there. If someone's able to eat barley bread, and he eats expensive bread made out of wheat, he is wasting his money. Pretty unbelievable, right? So, what's he saying? You're not rich. What are you doing? You're spending your money on some fancy bread. He's over about tashchis. Now, if you're wealthy, then you should eat it. So, this place right here, you know this place? Mm-hmm. So every piece of bread is like buying a steak. So this is the mamish the Gemara about this right now. So if you can afford it, go for it. If you can't afford it, you're doing bal tashchit. Now, you could say no. You could say it's different.
We're not on Shabbos. That's called with the Shabbos.
Very good, very good. And also, you could say this is different. Just give me a little. I knocked them down their business. So I want to boost it up because you could say that our bread is not healthy. He's talking about two healthy breads, but one's cheaper because one's made out of barley. But they're saying you got to eat this for health, so it's worth it. It's worth it. Yeah. If you're able to drink beer and you drink wine, which is more expensive, same thing. V'lav milsi, says the Gemara, it's not true. Bal tashchis de gufa odif. You should watch the bal tashchis of your guf more than of your money. Therefore, when you eat things that are healthier, even if they're more expensive, you're not considered wasting anything. So therefore, even if you can't afford this, the Gemara says, run to the store and, what is it called? Joseph's Organic Bakery. Okay.
That's a great thing, advertising for that. Oh,
this is Baltashka de Gufa Odif. Okay, Lamaisa, it got very late for me.
Yes.
I'm going to go now, okay? No, that way, Motzei Shabbos. Start with Kishmaka Gemaras.